I parked my car outside our neat, two-story home, just as the streetlights blinked awake. The October air clung to my skin like a cold whisper, sending a shiver through my back even before I stepped out. Rubbing my hands briskly, I stared at the familiar facade. Pale blue siding, white shutters, the porch swing that hadn't creaked in months. Anna used to rock Emily there after dinner, humming lullabies that drifted into the neighborhood's hush. These days, the swing just hangs limp, and some part of me feels the same. A neighbor's dog barked in the distance, and a faint smell of burning leaves wafted through the crisp evening. My phone buzzed with a new sales update from the office, but my mind barely registered the vibration. All day, I'd fought a gnawing restlessness. My last conference call ended hours ago, yet I lingered in the office, pacing the hallway, sipping stale coffee, doing everything except come home. Something felt off, intangible but heavy. I finally mustered the nerve to slip my key into the lock. The door swung open to a strange hush. Usually, Anna greeted me with a gentle smile or a quick mention of dinner plans. Tonight, silence pressed in, thick as night fog. I glanced at the foyer table, her car keys still there, so she hadn't gone out. My heart thumped at the base of my throat. "Anna," I called, tossing my jacket over the banister. No reply. I made my way through the living room. A single lamp glowed near the couch, casting long shadows that stretched across the floor. Stepping into the hallway, I caught a flicker of movement in our bedroom. The door stood ajar, revealing a warm slice of light. My pulse hammered in my ears. That's when I heard it. A muffled moan, low and breathy. I froze. A primal chill raced up my spine, beads of sweat forming under my collar. At first, I wanted to believe I misheard. Then another sound. This time, a hushed laugh. Too intimate. Too raw. My stomach tightened as I crept toward the doorway, each footstep an echo of dread. The voices grew clearer, still muffled but unmistakably human. My wife's gentle tone, entwined with a man's deeper register. And then, through the narrow gap, I saw them. Tangled sheets, Anna's bare shoulder rising above the covers, and an unfamiliar male silhouette pressed against her. He was on top, his hips moving against hers. She was whispering his name, gasping softly. My breath caught, a ragged rasp escaping my lips. They didn't notice. They were too far gone in their own frenzy to sense me. That moment, time fractured. One half of me screamed to rip the door open and roar at them both. The other half cowered, wanting to vanish. Fury, betrayal, raw disbelief ricocheted through my skull. She threw her head back, blonde hair splaying against the pillows, a sheen of sweat on her neck. He murmured something. I caught the word beautiful, and she gave a moan that tightened my chest. My heart thundered, but my limbs refused to budge. I stood rooted, an intruder in my own marriage. Blood pounded in my ears, every nerve alive with shock. Seconds stretched into agonizing eternity. My vision blurred. My wife, with another man, in our bed. Our bed. A strangled sound rose in my throat, finally snapping me to action. I slammed the bedroom door wide open. It crashed against the wall, rattling the frame. Anna screamed, yanking the sheet to her chest. The man fumbled backward, cursing, nearly tumbling off the bed. "What the hell?" His voice cracked. Anna's eyes locked on me, horrified. Her cheeks flushed, hair a tangled mess. I couldn't find words. My lungs seized, starved for air. I wanted to shout, to tear him apart. My fists trembled. "James," she stammered, her lips parted, searching for an explanation that would never be enough. My name on her lips felt like acid. I glared at both of them, her eyes brimming with shock, his posture tense like a cornered animal. For a split second, none of us moved. Then the man grabbed his pants from the floor, stumbling to jam his legs inside. Anna scrambled for her robe. My mind churned with images of them together, her body arching under his. The rawness of it hammered my composure. "Who is this?" I spat, voice quivering with rage. He glanced at me, swallowing hard. "I'm Mike," he mumbled, voice shaking. "Look, this isn't." Anna's face paled. "Jim, please, let me explain," she breathed, stepping forward. I raised a hand, palm out. Don't come near me." My voice sounded foreign, like a growl in my own throat. "How long?" The question erupted before I could stop it. "How many times?" Her lips trembled, but no words came. Guilt and panic tangled in her eyes. Mike exhaled sharply. "Look, man, we didn't." "Shut up," I roared. The nightstand rattled from the force of my voice. "This is my house, my wife, you worthless piece-off." I had no more words. Only fury. My fists ached to connect with his jaw. But an odd coldness paralyzed me. Something in me, maybe the father in me, the man who'd prided himself on being controlled, locked me down. Anna's voice broke through. "James, please, I'm sorry," she whispered, clutching the robe around her. Her eyes brimmed with tears that slid down her cheeks. "We didn't mean. I never wanted." I barked a grim laugh, stepping back. "Never wanted it. Didn't look that way just now." My stomach churned, nausea rising at the mental replay of her moans. "Get out," I told him, eyes drilling into Mike. "Before I kill you." He yanked his t-shirt on, eyes flicking from Anna to me. Then, without another word, he bolted out the door. A moment later, the front door slammed, leaving me alone with Anna in the stifling aftermath. She reached out, trembling. "James, Don't." I turned away, inhaling the stale odor of sweat and sex. Clinging to the air, my vision blurred from tears I refused to shed. "Pack your things." "Just pack. Where am I supposed to go?" Her voice wavered, small, frightened. I closed my eyes, chest tight. "I don't care." The words tasted bitter. "I can't look at you right now." She let out a choked sob. "James, please. I love you." This was a mistake. Her footsteps inched toward me. My heart hammered. Part of me wanted to hold her, demand an explanation that might numb the pain, but logic hissed that no words would fix what I'd just seen. My wife with another man. The betrayal scorched my soul. I forced my legs to move toward the door. "I need to breathe," I said hoarsely. "Don't follow me." I strode through the hallway, descending the stairs in a daze. My hand slid along the banister for balance. Each step away from that bedroom felt surreal, as though I might wake from a nightmare. But I was awake. The sting in my eyes confirmed it. Outside, the air slapped my face like ice. I gulped it down, staggering toward my car. My pulse pounded relentlessly, and an unsteady tremor racked my hands as I fumbled with the ignition. Finally, I started the engine, pulling away from the curb with squealing tires. Headlights cut through the dark, guiding me nowhere in particular, just away. I drove aimlessly, passing through silent streets, lined with maple trees shedding autumn leaves. Memories flickered. The day we first toured that house. Anna smiling as she imagined nursery colors for the baby. Her laughter when I carried her over the threshold after our wedding. The ring I saved months for. The vow I spoke with unwavering conviction. Useless illusions, all undone in a single moment. At a red light, I rubbed my forehead, eyes burning. The image of her with him replayed in my mind, unstoppable. My stomach twisted. She'd said his name, moaned it like an incantation of desire. I punched the steering wheel, letting out a ragged shout. Adrenaline flooded my system, making me see red. My phone chimed. I didn't have to check to know it was Anna. Probably frantic calls or desperate texts. I let it ring, ignoring the ache in my chest. So many questions swirled. How long had it been happening? What made her do it? Was something lacking in me? The fury roared louder. I turned off the phone. Eventually, I found myself pulling into an all-night diner off the highway. Neon lights buzzed overhead, reflecting in the puddles of the parking lot. I walked in, and a bored waitress motioned me to a booth. The smell of stale coffee and frying bacon clawed at my senses. I collapsed onto the plastic seat, elbows on the table, face buried in my hands. "Coffee?" the waitress asked. "Yeah," I muttered, not looking up. She shuffled away, leaving me with swirling thoughts. My reflection in the window, superimposed over passing headlights, looked haunted. This was my life now, shattered. I clenched my fists, shutting my eyes to block the memory of Anna's naked shoulder. But the more I tried not to think about it, the more vivid it became. Her curves under him, her laughter, her breathy moan. The waitress dropped off a chipped mug and poured black coffee. "You want cream, sugar?" "No, thanks," I muttered. Sipping the bitter liquid, I stared out into the night. My entire marriage, up in flames. My wife, someone I thought I knew better than myself, just shattered my faith. I'd gone from comfortable familiarity to a swirling maelstrom of anger, heartbreak, and confusion in a single evening. Time blurred. At some point, the place nearly emptied. The waitress hovered with the check, and I realized hours had passed. I left a few bills on the table, stepped back outside, and breathed in the cold. The numbness in my chest was replaced by a flicker of grim determination. I knew I had to go home eventually, but not tonight. I drove to a cheap motel near the off-ramp. The neon VDCANCW sign blinked in the gloom. After paying the clerk, who barely looked up from his phone, I found my room, flicked on the light, and sank onto the creaky bed. The walls were thin. I heard a TV muffled next door, some couple arguing 2 doors down. Their anger felt like a cruel echo of my own. I peeled off my shoes, stared at the ceiling, and let the tsunami of exhaustion claim me, hoping for oblivion. But sleep brought only half-formed nightmares. Anna's face twisting between laughter and apology, Mike's hands all over her body, my own helpless fury. I woke drenched in sweat, the musty motel sheets tangling my legs. My phone showed 3 a.m. There were missed calls, texts from Anna. "Please come home. I'm sorry. Let's talk. I love you." Each message felt like a needle in my heart. By morning, I decided, no matter how guilty she seemed, I needed answers. The rage brewed inside me, but a swirl of heartbreak and curiosity also churned. Why him? Why do this to us? The sun was barely up when I headed back. My eyes felt grainy, my mind raw. Pulling into the driveway, I spotted Anna sitting in the same spot. The house looked unchanged from the outside, but inside, everything was different now. I stepped through the front door, braced for confrontation. She was on the living room couch, arms wrapped around her knees. The second she saw me, she leaped up, tears brimming. "James, thank God." She reached for me, but I stepped back. "Don't," I warned. The coffee in my gut churned, fueling the anger I tried to contain. "Just tell me why." She bit her lip, voice trembling. "It's complicated." I folded my arms, feeling like a coiled spring. "Uncomplicated. I want the truth. How long have you been screwing him?" Her face contorted. "Please, don't say it like that." I let out a harsh laugh. How else should I say it? My voice cracked with bitterness. "Making love. Sleeping with. Betraying me with." She sank onto the couch, tears sliding silently. "A few months," she managed. "I never planned it. He was someone I met through a friend. It started as texting, then lunches, and..." She looked down, voice faltering. "It just happened. It just happened." I echoed, the phrase stinging. "Does he mean anything to you?" She shook her head, tears falling. "He was exciting, I guess. You were busy all the time, and I felt alone." I clenched my jaw, an acid retort on my lips, but behind the anger, a pang of hurt. She felt alone. I'd worked those late nights for us, to pay the bills, to give Emily a good life. Now she used that as an excuse. She reached out timidly. "We can fix this," James. I'm so sorry. I love you. I stared at her trembling hand. Part of me wanted to collapse, to believe her, to pretend last night never happened. But the vivid image of her in our bed with him still flashed behind my eyelids. I stepped back, voice low. Get your things. Go to your sister's place, or wherever you want. I need space. She inhaled shakily. What about Emily? My chest tightened at the mention of our daughter. She's at my dad's for the week, remember? He took her to Arizona for fall break. Which is good. She doesn't need to see this mess. Her face crumpled. James. That's all I have to say. I cut in, turning toward the stairs. Pack. Be gone by lunch. I heard her quiet sob as I climbed. Each step felt like stepping through quicksand, the weight of betrayal dragging me down. In the bedroom, the sheets were stripped off the mattress, presumably tossed in the laundry. The faint smell of her perfume lingered. I felt nauseous, rage swirling. My gaze fell on our wedding photo on the dresser. I snatched it up, stared at the frozen happiness on our faces. My throat constricted. Then, with a strangled breath, I set the frame face down, refusing to look at it anymore. I had no clue that the worst of the betrayals was yet to be discovered. In the days that followed, my life became a carefully orchestrated lie to everyone else. I showed up to work in the same crisp shirts, forced a polite smile for colleagues, and hammered through conference calls with robotic efficiency. Inside, I seethed. Anna moved in with her sister across town. We told neighbors she'd gone to help with a family emergency. Nobody questioned me further, though a few suspicious glances told me they sensed something was amiss. Late at night, I'd nurse a tumbler of whiskey in the living room, remembering scraps of our life together. The times we giggled over burnt dinners, the nights we fell asleep in each other's arms. Now, the memory of her body welcoming someone else carved fresh wounds daily. Anger was my constant companion. Beneath it, a restless curiosity gnawed. How had I failed so badly? I spent hours scrolling through her social media, searching for subtle clues. Most of her posts were about our daughter, or her preschool class, full of cheerful emojis and supportive comments from friends. Nothing hinted at an affair. Yet, I knew better now. Illusions were easy to maintain with enough desire. A week later, I made a discovery that shook me further. Anna's old phone, left in the bedroom closet. She probably assumed I wouldn't find it or bother turning it on. But that morning, driven by suspicion and desperation, I rummaged through every corner. And there it was, a digital Pandora's box. Powering it up, I skimmed her messages. My heart pounded as I unearthed texts with Mike, some explicit, some heartbreakingly intimate. I miss your smile. Can't stop thinking about yesterday. The way you held me. My temples throbbed. I read until I felt sick. Then my attention locked onto something else, an email thread hidden in the drafts folder. One subject line read, DNA test. My pulse spiked. Emily's name featured multiple times. My hand shook as I scrolled. Anna had corresponded with a discreet online DNA service months ago, apparently anxious about paternal results. She never finalized it. There was some confusion about the sample. But the seed was planted in my mind. Emily might not be my child. Fear and fury merged, a tornado in my gut. Rationally, I recalled Emily was 9, older than Anna's fling with Mike. So if there was a paternity question, it predated this affair. Could there have been another man? My thoughts spiraled, old memories surfacing. Anna's odd mood swings when pregnant, her abrupt job change. No, it couldn't be. Emily was my daughter. I was there at the birth. We shared a million little daily routines. She had to be mine. But a scorching doubt took hold. I needed answers. Real, scientific, black and white. If Anna had stepped out before, maybe my entire life was built on a lie. That evening I booked a paternity test kit under a pseudonym, determined to do it behind Anna's back. Days turned into an anxious blur. Emily returned from her grandpa's. She bounced into the living room, hugging me tight, jabbering about her trip. My heart clenched with conflicting emotions, love for this bright-eyed child who called me dad, and a terrifying suspicion that I might have no genetic tie to her. She was still my daughter, no matter what. Yet the question twisted my insides. Anna tried calling me, leaving long voicemails apologizing, begging for a chance to talk. I let them go unanswered. I wasn't ready to face her. Not until I knew the truth. Meanwhile, I forced a semblance of normalcy around Emily, smiling through bedtime stories, checking her homework, reminding her I cared. A few days later, I discreetly collected Emily's saliva sample, turning it into a casual "let's do a fun science project" moment. She giggled, oblivious, swishing water in her mouth afterward. I smiled too, heart hammered with guilt for deceiving her. Then I mailed the kit off and braced for results that could shatter me further. Work became my refuge. I poured energy into tasks, volunteering for extra projects just to keep my mind from racing. Yet no matter how I tried to bury my anguish, it seeped through. I'd snap at colleagues over trivial mistakes. I'd daydream about confronting Anna, demanding she tell me the whole truth. My boss noticed my tension, but I gave vague excuses about personal issues at home. Nighttime found me scouring the internet for stories of men discovering their children weren't theirs biologically. Some recounted heartbreak, others unconditional acceptance. I read until my eyes burned, searching for something. Hope, validation, a roadmap for dealing with betrayal. But every anecdote only heightened my dread. 2 weeks dragged on like a slow-motion car crash. At last, an unmarked envelope arrived in my P.O. box. My chest constricted as I tore it open, hands trembling so badly the paper nearly ripped. The results were blunt, a single page of stark text. Probability of paternity, 0%. My world reeled, my vision blurred. A wave of grief and fury crashed through me. Emily was not my biological daughter. The knowledge hammered at my chest until I couldn't breathe. Everything I'd built, my sense of family, my identity as a father, trembled on the brink of collapse. I slammed the car door shut and let out a scream so raw my throat stung. Then I pounded the steering wheel with both fists, tears burning trails down my cheeks. In that moment, heartbreak fused with a seething hatred for Anna's lies. Not only had she cheated recently, but she'd betrayed me from the start. Emily, whom I cherished, was someone else's child. My mind replayed every father-daughter memory in a cruel new light. That night, I didn't return home. I roamed the city streets, fueled by adrenaline and sorrow, drifting from one deserted block to another. The cold bit at my skin, but I felt numb. She had stolen my choice, stolen my chance at honesty. I wasn't done being a father to Emily. I loved her more than life. But the foundation of trust between me and Anna was annihilated. When I finally answered Anna's call, my voice was dead calm. "I know the truth," I said, letting the silence linger. She tried to form words, stammering, "James, let me." I ended the call. Let her stew. My fury demanded more than just confrontation now. A plan simmered. I'd give her the shock of her life, show her just how deeply she'd cut me. I'd wait for the perfect moment to drop the proof of her betrayal in front of everyone, including our unsuspecting daughter. Cruel, perhaps, but in my darkest hour, I wanted them both, Anna and the man who fathered Emily, whoever he was, to pay. My sense of fairness, of decency, had died on the day I found her in bed with Mike. This was the new me, bent on a vengeance that would scorch her illusions of a peaceful resolution. Emily's 9th birthday loomed on the calendar. We'd already arranged a modest party, inviting a few of her classmates and neighborhood friends, balloons, cake, the usual festive touches. Despite our marital crisis, Anna and I agreed not to ruin the celebration for our daughter. But inside, I carried the DNA test results like a loaded weapon, waiting for the perfect time to pull the trigger. The day arrived with a swirl of pink and purple decorations. The house, once my sanctuary, teemed with excited kids, chatter, and music. Anna showed up looking tense, wearing a polite smile for the parents dropping off their children. She avoided my gaze, focusing on Emily. My daughter beamed, giggling with her friends, oblivious to the tension crackling between me and her mother. Midway through the party, after Emily blew out her candles, Anna approached me near the kitchen. "James, can we talk after everyone leaves?" Her voice trembled with barely concealed anxiety. I studied her face, mascara carefully applied, lips pressed in a forced smile. I recognized the fear behind her eyes. She suspected I knew about Emily's paternity, but didn't realize I already had proof. "Sure," I said flatly, a flicker of cold satisfaction gripping me. Let her wonder. Guests filtered out, one by one, hugging Emily goodbye. By late afternoon, only a couple of Anna's relatives remained, cleaning up stray paper plates. Emily tore open her gifts in the living room, squealing at the new art set from her aunt. My jaw tightened. She deserved better than the chaos swirling behind the scenes. Anna cornered me by the hallway. "Please, I need to explain," she whispered, flicking nervous glances at her sister. "I never wanted to hurt you. Emily. She doesn't know. She thinks you're her dad, always has. You are her dad, James. The only dad she's ever known." Rage seethed in my gut. "That's the problem," I said quietly, voice taut. "I'm living a lie, Anna. Let's go outside," she pleaded. "I can't do this in front of Emily." I shook my head. The moment of reckoning had come. I stepped into the living room, ignoring Anna's panicked protests. Emily looked up from her pile of presents, beaming. "Daddy, look at this." She held up a sparkly notebook. My heart twisted. I loved that little girl, no doubt about it. But my fury demanded a scene that Anna would never forget. Her sister paused, clutching a paper bag of leftover cake, sensing the tension. I cleared my throat, ignoring the chaotic swirl of guilt. "Emily," I said gently, "I have something for your mom." Anna's eyes widened in horror. "James, not now," she hissed under her breath. But I marched forward, retrieving a plain white envelope from the hall table. I held it out to Anna. "Happy birthday to our daughter," I said with venom. She stared at the envelope, hands shaking. Emily looked from me to Anna. "What's going on?" Anna inhaled sharply, tears threatening. She tore open the envelope, scanning the paper. Her face went ashen, lips trembling. "James, how could you do this on her birthday?" I kept my voice steady, though my insides churned. "I wanted you to see what I've known for weeks. The truth." Anna's sister stood there, mouth agape, confusion in her eyes. Emily blinked, uneasy. Anna tried to hold back tears, her voice cracking. "Emily, sweetie, go upstairs. She has a right to know," I snapped, though a pang of guilt twisted in my chest. "You lied to me. 9 years." "James, stop." Anna sobbed, her face streaked with tears. She glanced frantically at her sister, who hurriedly led Emily from the room despite the child's frantic questions. Emily's footsteps thudded up the stairs, followed by the sound of her crying. Anna glared at me, heartbreak shining in her eyes. "You're hurting Emily. She doesn't deserve this." "Neither did I," I shot back. "You think I wanted to learn she's not mine through a lab test. You stole my choice to know the truth from the start." Her tears fell freely. "I was scared, James. I didn't think you'd stay with me if you knew." Her biological father walked away. I was alone. "Then I met you, and everything felt right." I scoffed, eyes burning with my own unshed tears. "You decided for me. You used me to play house, let me believe she was mine, and then you had another affair on top of that. This is beyond betrayal, Anna." She clutched the DNA results to her chest, trembling. "I'm sorry. I love you, and you are Emily's father in every way that matters." My fury flared. "I was her father," I growled. "Until you destroyed my trust. Now I can't even look at you without seeing the lies." Anna sank to her knees, sobbing. Her sister hovered in the doorway, white-faced and silent. I stared at the woman I once adored, now undone, tears staining her cheeks. A perverse satisfaction flickered inside me. Yes, I'd humiliated her in front of her family. Yes, I'd wrecked the birthday celebration. But maybe now she'd feel a fraction of the agony I carried. I took a slow, unsteady breath, letting the moment stretch. My heart hammered a bleak rhythm. "Pack your things," I said quietly, echoing the words I once spoke. "Leave this house. I'm filing for divorce first thing tomorrow. And I'll see what happens with custody." The last words felt hollow because, despite everything, I still felt protective of Emily. Anna's sister gently placed a hand on my arm. "James, be reasonable. Emily's the real victim here." I yanked my arm away, glaring. "Don't lecture me. Anna made her choices. So did you, apparently, by covering for her. Now I'm making mine." I tossed Anna a final glance. "I want you both out of my sight." Her sister helped her up, and they stumbled toward the door. Anna paused, turning to me, voice thick with desperation. "James, please, where do I go with Emily?" My throat constricted. I could hardly bear the thought of losing my daughter's presence. But the rage overshadowed the guilt. "I don't care," I said, forcing coldness into my tone. "This house is mine. You two are not welcome." She choked back a sob and left, the door shutting behind them with a hollow thud that echoed through the silent living room. I stood alone in the wreckage. Balloons drifting on the floor, half-wrapped gifts scattered. Emily's birthday turned into a battlefield, my revenge complete. Yet as the adrenaline subsided, an emptiness seized me. I'd destroyed Anna's illusions, but I'd also trampled the heart of an innocent child who still called me Dad. Trembling, I slumped onto the couch, face buried in my hands. The house was now silent, the distant hum of the refrigerator mocking the chaos I'd unleashed. My heart hammered with conflicting emotions, vengeful triumph, and profound guilt. There was no going back. I'd shattered everything. Days blurred after the party. I initiated divorce proceedings, meeting with a lawyer who outlined the legal labyrinth ahead. She advised me that if I wanted to remain in Emily's life, I had rights as her de facto father, especially after so many years. But my anger roiled. I wanted to burn every bridge that connected me to Anna. And yet, every day without Emily's laughter echoing in the halls cut me deeper. Meanwhile, Anna moved into a small apartment downtown, presumably funded by her sister. She emailed me once about picking up the rest of her belongings and some of Emily's clothes. I responded with curt instructions to come while I was at work. The less contact, the better. I still had another target for my revenge. Mike, the man I'd caught in bed with Anna. Although Emily wasn't his child, he was an emblem of her fresh betrayal. I discovered from old text messages that he had a major presentation scheduled with a potential marketing client, someone whose shipping needs overlapped with my logistics firm. Fueling my rage, I decided to sabotage him professionally. It wasn't difficult. I used my company's network to dig into the prospective client's background, gleaning just enough to sow doubt about Mike's credentials. A few well-placed phone calls, a rumor whispered to the client about his unreliable track record, and I watched from a distance as the deal fell through. I felt a surge of grim satisfaction when I heard he lost a big contract. Maybe it was petty, but at that point, I thrived on petty. I wanted him to taste loss, to watch his ambitions crumble, just as he'd helped destroy my marriage. Yet after the surge of triumph, I was left hollow. My nights were punctuated by nightmares, and my days by an unending sense of betrayal. Even achieving my vengeance felt like an empty echo compared to the magnitude of my heartbreak. I fell asleep in the living room with the TV on, bottles of whiskey piling up in the trash, ignoring texts from friends who sensed something was off. About a month later, I received an unexpected phone call from Anna's sister. She sounded nervous. "James, please hear me out," she said, voice tight. "Emily's not doing well. She's failing her spelling tests. refusing to talk, crying at night. She misses you. She needs her dad. My chest tightened. I closed my eyes, the ache in my heart flaring. I don't know what to say, I muttered. Look, Anna did an awful thing, her sister conceded. But Emily loves you. You've always been her father, no matter what the DNA test says. Don't punish her for Anna's mistakes. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. Guilt and longing clashed inside me. I pictured Emily's bright smile, the way she'd race into my arms after school. Could I really turn my back on her, the child who believed in me? My voice emerged, husky. Okay. I need to think. 2 more weeks passed before I mustered the courage to see Emily. I arrived at Anna's apartment building, a plain brick structure with a cramped parking lot. My heart hammered as I climbed the narrow stairwell. Anna opened the door, eyes wary. She looked thinner, paler, as though she hadn't slept much. The tension between us was a living thing. But behind her, Emily peered around the doorway, expression uncertain. "Daddy," she whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. All my anger melted in that single moment. Kneeling, I opened my arms. She flung herself into me, sobbing. Her small body trembled as I held her, tears flooding my own eyes. "I'm sorry," I choked out, stroking her hair. She just buried her face against my chest. Anna hovered by the couch, silent. I caught her gaze over Emily's shoulder, filled with remorse, sorrow, and a hint of hope. But I had no words for her. This was about me and my daughter. Emily sniffled. "You left Daddy. I thought you didn't love me anymore." My throat seized. I swallowed hard. "I never stopped loving you, Princess," I murmured. "I was just hurt, but none of it is your fault. Understand?" She nodded slowly, eyes brimming. I hugged her tighter, guilt squeezing my chest. I'd wanted vengeance, but in the process, I'd wounded the person who meant more to me than anything. No matter what a piece of paper said, she was my daughter in every way that mattered. Anna cleared her throat. "James." I stood, placing a gentle hand on Emily's shoulder. "Go play in your room for a minute, okay? I need to speak with your mom." She hesitated, then padded away, glancing back uncertainly. Once she was out of earshot, I faced Anna. Our eyes locked in a painful silence. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice broken. "I know you can't forgive me, and I understand. But Emily, she loves you. We can figure out some arrangement. Please don't cut her out of your life." I studied her. This woman who'd torn my heart out, yet who was also the mother of the child I adored. My anger still simmered, but Emily's needs overshadowed it. "I'll be there for Emily," I said hoarsely. "But you and I exhaled. "We're done. The divorce stands. I won't contest joint custody if that's what's best for her. But beyond that, we have nothing to talk about." She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I understand." Staring at the worn carpet, I wrestled with all that remained unsaid. How she'd stolen 9 years of honesty. How she'd chosen another man's bed. How she'd deceived me in ways I never imagined. But rehashing it wouldn't mend anything. My vengeance was complete. I'd shattered her illusions, torn apart her sense of security, sabotaged her lover's livelihood, and ensured she'd never slip back into complacency. Yet none of that rewrote the past or truly erased my pain. I squared my shoulders. "I'll visit Emily regularly. We'll formalize a schedule through the lawyers. She deserves stability." Anna nodded again, a flicker of gratitude crossing her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'm sorry for everything." I had no response. Instead, I turned toward the hallway where Emily had disappeared. I found her in her tiny bedroom. Pink curtains, a bookshelf brimming with stories we used to read together. She glanced up, eyes still puffy. Without a word, I joined her on the floor, and she crawled into my lap. I held her close, inhaling the sweet scent of her shampoo, trying to let go of the rage for just one moment. focusing on the love I had for this child who was mine in every way that truly mattered. Later, I left the apartment with a promise to return soon. My chest felt heavy but slightly freer, as though letting Emily back in had cracked open the door to my own healing. Driving away, I realized that vengeance, though intoxicating in the midst of heartbreak, left a bitter aftertaste. I'd destroyed the life Anna and I'd once shared, and in doing so, I scarred myself too. But from that ruin, I still had Emily's unconditional love, a final anchor in the storm. My life wouldn't be the same. I'd never again trust so blindly. I'd never erase the image of Anna in bed with Mike, nor forget the DNA test that turned my world upside down. Yet maybe in time, I could rebuild a new identity, shaped by honesty rather than illusions. The future stretched before me, uncertain but open, promising both struggle and a chance for renewal. I pressed my foot on the accelerator, leaving the city behind. Darkness fell across the highway, but I felt a spark of resolve in my chest. I had survived the ultimate betrayal and unleashed my revenge. Now I had to survive the aftermath. Tomorrow, I would face the day with a little less anger, a little more determination to forge a different path, one where I could still be a father to Emily, even if my marriage lay in ashes. And for the first time since discovering Anna's affair, I allowed myself a faint glimmer of hope that life, battered and broken though it was, would go on.